"I will never have kids," Chantu said. Chantu, a young woman who grew up in a bustling household with her aunt and her aunts for lively children. The house was always full of noise and chaos. Chantu, though still a young herself, often found herself taking on the responsibilities of caring for her cousins. Day in and day out, she cooked, cleaned, and tried to keep the peace among the children. The stress was overwhelming, and Chantu's patience wore thin. One particularly exhausting day, as the children argued and ran through the house, Chantu, feeling at her wit's end, muttered under her breath, "I will never have kids." It wasn't a statement she had ever meant to be serious about, but it was the weight of years of frustration and exhaustion coming out in a moment of weakness. Years passed, and Chantu married a kind and loving man named Patoto. They built a life together and dreamed of having children. But after 6 years of marriage, no child came. Chantu visited countless doctors, seeking answers. But the results were always the same. There was no explanation for her inability to conceive. She even turned to prayer houses, hoping for divine intervention. But still, there was no change. Frustration and sadness began to weigh heavily on Clara's heart. One afternoon, while shopping at the local market, suddenly an old woman appeared at her side. "Why don't you have a child?" the old woman asked, her voice gentle but piercing. "Why don't you have one?" the woman repeated. Clara, trying not to respond, but the woman continued, "You remind me of something you once said when you were younger. You said, 'I will never have kids.'" The words hit Clara like a wave. She hadn't thought about that moment in years, knowing that those words had been born out of a place of pain, and now it seemed as though they had come back to haunt her. The old woman said, "You need to retrieve the words you said years back." As she gently patted her hand and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. That night, Chantu sat in her room and reflected on the woman's words. She closed her eyes and prayed, asking for forgiveness for the harsh words she had spoken all those years ago. She prayed for peace and for the blessing of a child. In that moment, Chantu's heart was filled with hope. A few months later, Chantu was pregnant and later gave birth. It was a miracle, one that filled her heart with indescribable joy. Morals. Words spoken in frustration or anger can have lasting effects. Chantu's words as a child about never having kids seemed insignificant at the time, but it had a lasting impact. Sometimes, an unexpected encounter or a piece of wisdom from someone like the old woman can help us realize something we've overlooked. Chantu's chance meeting with the old woman served as a turning point, reminding her of the power of her own words and offering her a chance for renewal.